All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for today's UN Global Compact Academy session called SDG Ambition, Your Questions Answered. As you likely know, if you're joining us today, we launched the SDG Ambition Accelerator last year and just recently completed the first round of this 6-month long accelerator program. And so we're excited to spend time on the call today, really letting you know about more about the program and hopefully inform you about some things you may be thinking about if you're considering signing up for our second round. SDG Ambition is run by the Global Compact with our local networks in partnership with Accenture and supported by SAP and 3M. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. As obvious by its name, your questions answered means that we hope you will indeed come with questions for us. We'll be using the Q&A function today. You'll see both Q&A and chat. So if you have questions for the panelists, please use that Q&A function so that we can see it. If someone else on the call asks a question that you agree with or that you would also like to hear the answer to in the Q&A, you can give it a thumbs up to indicate that you want to hear the answer. And if you just want to say hi to everyone else, introduce yourself, let us know where you're dialing in from, please feel free to use the chat function. And my colleagues are monitoring both the chat and Q&A and will work to be really responsive for you. I wanted to flag also that we do have subtitling in English available on the call today. You likely see it hopefully already automatically on your screen. If you want to turn it off or if you're not seeing it, there should be a subtitles button within the control bar. So that will pop up and enable you to view or turn off the subtitles. With that, I would like to introduce both myself and my co-panelists today. My name is Caitlin Casey. I'm a Senior Manager of Global Operations at the UN Global Compact based in New York, who's been leading the SDG Ambition work from our side for the last couple of years. And I'm really happy to be joined on the call by two colleagues. Amelia Hall is a Senior Strategy Consultant at Accenture who works really closely with us on the delivery of the program. And then Vina Carissa is a Membership and Events Coordinator for our UN Global Compact network in Malaysia, one of the networks that is running SDG Ambition in countries. So really happy to be joined by them to give you a few different perspectives on what the SDG Ambition Accelerator is. And so you'll be hearing from them in a little bit. A very simple agenda for us today. As I said, we're really just a chance to get into some details on the accelerator for you. But we'll start with just a quick overview of what SDG Ambition is and what the SDG Ambition Accelerator then is. And then we'll go into some of the most frequently asked questions that we hear from participants over the last year of running the program, just some things that we anticipate, but then we'll open up the floor to you. So just a gentle push yet again to definitely use that Q&A function. And we'll look forward to being a little bit more interactive as the program goes on. So with that, I'm gonna start, just kick us off with an introduction of why we at the Global Compact saw the need to develop a program like SDG Ambition. What we saw is that in 2015, of course, as we well know, the Sustainable Development Goals were launched by the member states of the United Nations. And what's so unique is that we as a global community came together behind these universal goals. But what we see is that half a decade later, we are falling behind as a community on where we need to be if we're going to be successful in delivering the SDGs by 2030. I think this is something that we experience in our daily life at this point. I mean, in the last 2 weeks alone, we've had record-breaking heat waves here in the US, tragic flooding in Europe and Asia, forest fires, and that's just even from the, and let alone the fact that we're all still sitting here in the middle of a global pandemic. On top of that, we know that income inequality continues to rise, deforestation is on the rise, the gender gap is not near closing worldwide. So we see that gap. And at the same time, we also know that stakeholders around the world, from your workforce, regulators, investors, and consumers, are expecting increased action. So all to say, we see in an external environment a lot of push for increased action towards the SDGs. On the other hand, what we see from the Global Compact perspective, which then means hopefully what reflective of you and your role as from the business community, is that there really is a gap between how the business community is taking action on the SDGs and what that level of ambition really is that we need to achieve the goals. The good news is that there is a really high level of engagement by business in the 2030 agenda. Our 2020 progress report indicated that 81% of Global Compact companies are taking some action for the SDGs. But I would say that we haven't yet seen the sort of step change in ambition that's needed to actually achieve them. So there's this really critical performance gap between the action that business is taking today and that level of global and societal need that's defined by the Sustainable Development Goals. So for example, 39% of companies responding to that same survey say that they have targets that they believe are sufficiently ambitious to deliver on the goals. So even self-reported, the majority of companies don't have those ambitious goals. And then further, most companies tell us that one of the biggest challenges that they experience in sustainability is embedding it deeply across their strategies, operations, value, or supply chain. Less than half of the Global Compact companies that responded to that survey said that they are embedding the SDGs into their core business practice, and only 37% said that they were designing whole business models around them, and that actually may be high. So we see this sort of pressure from two sides. On the one hand, we're experiencing like ever mounting pressures from climate and society to achieve the goals, and yet we overall are not seeing that level of embedding and ambition needed to really have that acceleration of change that we need. All of this is what's really this sort of the background of what's motivating our work on SDG ambition. And what I always come back to is this quote from Secretary General Antonio Guterres that to me sums up why it is that we're here. What he said when he looked at those gaps is that it's abundantly clear that a much deeper, faster, and more ambitious response is needed to unleash the social and economic transformation needed to achieve our 2030 goals. So for us at the Global Compact, at working with you as companies, what that tells us is that we need to be more ambitious in our strategies to achieve the SDGs. We need to go deeper in our implementation and integration of those goals across the organization. And overall, we need to speed up our efforts in this regard. So through SDG Ambition, we hope that we're able to provide the support and guidance needed for companies to really effectively respond to this call to action by the Secretary General. With that background, I'm going to ask Amelia to introduce us to the SDG Ambition Benchmarks, which are another way that we try to really define the level of ambition needed.
Absolutely. So the birth of the SDG Benchmarks was really around what Caitlin really described as the need to up-level the ambitious goals that we are taking as a community to really rapidly be able to meet and to fuel the progress we need to make to reach the SDGs. So we developed an initial list of 10 SDG ambition benchmarks to challenge organizations to set more ambitious goals and targets in areas specifically where business is positioned to have a substantial impact. For example, three of my favorite benchmarks are A, gender balance across all levels of management, B, 100% sustainable material inputs that are renewable, recyclable, or reusable, and 3, 100% of employees across the organization achieve a living wage. In order to come up with this initial list of benchmarks, we really took 4 steps. The first was we identified areas where business action is vital for achieving the SDGs by 2030 to really help close that gap that Caitlin discussed. 2, we researched existing goal setting practices, pulling from best practices when it comes to metrics, benchmarking, and what the scientific evidence is showing us, and further refining this research through discussions with over 100 experts across the UN, Accenture, as well as external issue experts. 3, we focused on areas that are broadly applicable across industries and geographies. And 4, we selected areas that could be framed in an absolute manner with clear quantitative measurements. While this is an initial list, we do hope to grow it as the science evolves and consensus is reached around the establishment of absolute thresholds in other areas such as human rights, biodiversity, etc. Now, we know that these benchmarks are not easy to achieve, hence the word ambition. However, without absolute concrete benchmarks that every company can strive towards, the incremental progress we're seeing today is not sufficient to meet the SDGs by 2030. We therefore hope that these ambitious benchmarks will inspire companies to move away from incremental action to the more transformative action that, again, Caitlin highlighted, where you really stretch yourself to be able to set ambitious goals and come up with ways to integrate these goals into your business system. Next slide, please. So having discussed the benchmarks, I also want to discuss the accelerator. After all, we know that it is hard to implement these benchmarks. And this is really where the accelerator comes in. Through the accelerator, we hope to guide you through how to set ambitious goals and targets, how to come up with an integration approach and plan to really be able to implement this in the business, and how to leverage innovative and emerging technology to take concrete action. This inclusive approach can be applied to companies globally, big or small, to raise the level of ambition across all. By setting ambitious corporate goals that are aligned with the level that we really need to see to be able to meet the sustainable development goals, we can unlock the acceleration necessary and foster collaboration across the supply chain and among peers. Next slide, please. However, I do realize I've been chatting a lot about why the accelerator is good at large. I really want to make sure that we also talk about why the accelerator is good for you and the company. The accelerator is an opportunity for companies to think strategically and prioritize what areas they can have the most impact in, set goals aligned to those priorities, and create a plan on how to act upon these goals and integrate these. During the six-month program, we expect you to, 1, strategically prioritize current or potential areas that you can take action in. B, set internal targets that align with absolute benchmarks to spearhead this internal transformation and to keep you accountable moving forward. C, learn how to approach sustainability management holistically and really unlock the underlying business systems so you can take action and track progress. And finally, how to build a business case that will help generate buy-in across the company that is really necessary to be able to take those actions. Coming out of this program, we hope that every company will have at least one new or revised goal that aligns with the level of ambition that we set out with the benchmarks previously discussed, coupled with an integration journey guide and a plan of action that outlines the steps that are needed to really practically be able to implement and achieve this goal. With that, I'll happily hand it back over to Caitlin to think about, to discuss the specific logistics of the program.
Thanks, Amelia. Yeah, exactly. So just to be totally clear what we're talking about, the SDG Ambition Accelerator is a 6-month-long, outcome-driven accelerator program where we're going to be providing that support that Amelia just articulated. the program is divided into 3 modules, and because of the times, it's all delivered virtually. So what that means is that we have a mix of on-demand courses that you take on your own time, and then the facilitated live sessions where you've hopefully come prepared, you've viewed all of the content, and then in those live sessions that are facilitated by Accenture and run by our local networks, you're really having the chance to engage with your peers, be challenged, and think critically about the ways that these broader concepts can apply to your company. So in the first module, we look at goal setting practice and how you prioritize which of the SDGs and these SDG ambition benchmarks you can have the most impact on. Then we turn, from here you've identified your priority area, you're ready to do goal setting. From here in the second module, we focus on identifying the metrics that you'll use to track progress towards your goal and begin to build your business case for taking action towards SDG ambition benchmarks. Over these first 2 sessions, you sort of start to feel it's, sort of sharing content, a little more content heavy with the on-demand courses at the beginning, and then we really start to get very active towards the end with the facilitated workshops. In the third module, we look across the potential system solutions for your company that are going to help drive that implementation and integration of SDG action deeper into your core business practice, and also work on developing your business case pitch for what ambitious action would look like. So across this 6 months that you would spend with us, really with the networks, there are about 8 on-demand courses of 20 to 30 minutes, again, that you watch on your own time, and at least 7 facilitated workshops of 2 to 2.5 hours that we would put into your calendar. For this second round, just wanted to give you a sense of the timeline that we're looking at. Right now, we're currently in the period of recruitment, so you can sign up before the 30th of September. And then from September through about mid to late October, we'll be doing the onboarding. So you'll be getting access to our learning system where all of the content is shared. You can begin to sort of peruse the materials and see what it is you'll need to know. We'll schedule the calls, things like that. But then really towards the end of this year, you would be expecting to have 1 to 2 of those first facilitated workshops. And then the majority of the program will sort of begin to run through the end of April 2022. We have, as a big milestone for us, the Global Compact Leaders Summit next June, where SDG Ambition is always featured as really a highlight of the Global Compact overall. And we like to hear from companies that participated, hear about the goals that they're setting, and learn more about the experiences that they had. So our colleague Vina is going to talk in a little bit about how it works with local networks, but I just wanted to highlight here, as you're signing up, a great thing is that these dates are sort of all approximate of when activities would happen, but it's scheduled around your local context and where the networks really know when your holidays are, when your busy times of year are. So this is a general guide, but sort of what you could expect. So that's what the program is, this virtual mix of on-demand content and live facilitated sessions supported by Accenture and your local network. We're so happy that we were able to complete our first round. And we learned a lot from that first experience that we're looking to improve upon and change and advance as we come now into the second round that we're recruiting for now. But keeping that in mind, we're going to transition now to the part where we share some of the frequently asked questions that we hear, and want to start by just hearing a little bit more around what we heard from those participants in the first round of the program. So Amelia, could you give us a little bit more of an overview of how it went for the first time?
Absolutely. So as Caitlin mentioned, we just essentially wrapped up the first round. It ran from January through June of this year. And I think it was a great success, though we definitely also learned a lot and are improving for round two. So we had over 600 companies across 65 countries participate, with over 20 local networks signing up. We had almost a 90% satisfaction rate. And a couple of quick stats I want to share, which I was particularly proud of, is one, we had 81% of participants agree that the Accelerator helped them shape ambitious goals, which is our ultimate goal. So I'm happy to report that we're doing our job there. And then secondly, we had 87% of participants agree that the Accelerator helped them identify new ways to contribute to the SDGs, showing this program's value even with all of the guidance and literature out there today. However, I don't want you to just take my word. Here we do have some quotes from participants that really shows that they thought that this program was enriching and rewarding experience that helped them reach that next level when it comes to corporate sustainability. Quick reminder, registration is open until June 30th. And I'm sure that we'll be going into more of the details of that experience with a few other colleagues on this phone to really see how this works at a more local level.
Great, thanks, Amelia. And I do just want to highlight this. These are sort of our initial results. The program actually just ended last month. So we continue, this is sort of what we see initially out of our very first feedback round, but a great thing about this program is that we'll continue to follow up with participants and sort of see how it's going. So that's even just a little bit more context behind some of these numbers. All right, so with that, I think another question that we hear super commonly from companies is to say, we already have our, like, two views of the same sort of question. One is our company already has sustainability goals that are already in flight. So this is a program about goal setting. What do we do? And the other is like, we're already taking some action on the SDGs. How does that fit in? Is the program still relevant? So Amelia, I'd be interested to hear what you would say to a company that's maybe thinking that they're in that circumstance.
Yeah, of course. And to Caitlin's point, this is something that we hear all the time. I already have something in place. I'm already further along my sustainability journey. Is this of value to me? And my answer right off the bat is yes, I do think that this program is of value. And I think there are really 4 key reasons why. First is that it's a great, safe environment to explore a new benchmark that may be unconsidered by your company. Maybe you are taking some steps towards one certain SDG or one area. Maybe you want to explore another one. This is a great environment to do so. B, you may want to assess current benchmarks or policies and kind of benchmark them and see if they are the ambition level that you need to have them at, or if you want to up-level them. C, you may want to accelerate progress. Oftentimes we do see companies that may have set specific targets or goals, but maybe are struggling with figuring out how to implement that, and could really benefit from guidance on practical, actionable steps and how you can set a target and implement it within your organization, discussing what KPIs to track, metrics to assess, etc. And finally, I think that there's a lot of benefit from collaborating with your peers in this very open environment. I know that in the tracks that I was following and participating in, you speak with a diverse range of companies across various industries, from big to small companies, and really everyone shares how they're tackling these issues, what actions they're taking to overcome challenges. And through those discussions, you can generate a lot of ideas for how you yourself as a company can overcome some of these challenges. So that's why I think that this is beneficial, but also happy to have anyone else chime in.
Well, I think that's a really good summary, and it's something, especially as we were looking at the feedback from the first rounds, that we were really excited to see sort of validated our theory behind the program overall. Another really common, if you've gotten to this point, you've heard me talking about the local networks, and I see some questions to this end in the chat. We've been talking about how the program is primarily run through our Global Compact local networks around the world, but we do also offer a global track. What I want to say to that end is that the global track really is sort of our catch-all for those companies that are based in a country either where the local network isn't running the program or where you may not have a local network. So that's facilitated in English. It's a broad and very diverse group of companies that would participate, but at its the in-country track is really how the program was designed, because you have this great network of and local contacts. I'll let Vina talk a little bit more about that. So just to say that this year we have more than 30 networks that are going to be running the second round. And I wanted to highlight, because I saw a question about this, if you're in a country where the network is not currently running it, but maybe has run it in the past, such as Singapore, they may, in some cases, just as they look at their programming cycles, be taking this round off. So it may be worthwhile to reach out to your local network and see if they plan to run future rounds. There's quite a number of our local networks that we know already are going to be a part of next year's track for SDG Ambition. So in that case, it actually may be worthwhile to wait for the next round if your network isn't a part of it at this point. But I feel like that's enough on the global track, since the real highlight of the program is our in-country track. Vina, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about what it really looks like, especially within the ASEAN context, and how you guys are running the program.
All right, thanks, Kathleen. So good morning, everyone from Malaysia here. I am Vina, and I'm mainly the coordinator of the SDG Ambition Accelerator program for Malaysian companies, together with my colleague Cindy, and of course, our wonderful facilitators from Accenture. And here I want to elaborate more on how you can benefit by joining in-country tracks. Just a little bit background, we, Malaysia, decided to organize these programs jointly with other Asian countries. In this case is Thailand and Philippines. And I'm sure it will be a great, amazing experience and opportunities, both for me and the participants. Upcoming here in the short presentation, I would like to share with you why this program can be a huge interest in your company and hopefully convince you to take part in the accelerator. Okay, so as you can see here, there are 5 points that the flagship benefits from the SDG Ambition Asian tracks. So the first one is the convenience session timing. We surely want to give the best for our participants. So we want to make sure before arranging the live session, we conducted a quick survey, which lot of times is best from the company side. Actually, not only for the timing, but also we also conduct the feedback for every live session. And I can proudly share from the previous round that most of the time, more than 70% of the participants, which consists of more than 30 companies from Asian region, think that the session is very helpful to help companies to be able to set clear corporate targets that drive their business value. Okay, so our next benefits is track specialization. So we have the additional sessions such as workshop or talks by sustainability practitioners to give you an insight for this. There, you also can ask anything, not only relating to the module, but also any challenges you may raise during the program. So we make sure that by participating in this program, you will get a lot of valuable knowledge on the current important sustainability issues and challenges, and it will be very helpful for the rest of your career, or I think also for the rest of your life. Okay, next benefits is from employing this specific program are the materials provided are tailored suited to the current business situations and conditions in the region. The situation shows that ever-growing business in the Asian regions need a new fitted program that can facilitate the acceleration of growth of business and companies in the region. This specific program will also kickstart the expansive networking opportunity among Asian region companies, as the current COVID-19 situation in the region also highlights the importance of long-range connection more than ever. Also, not forgetting the fact that the interconnected countries in the region by the unity and synergy of ASEAN would be even more fruitful and impactful with this program. As this program has a strong interactive character, so that instead of someone telling you what to do, you are expected to take a proactive role and engage in lively discussion with other participants. It was good to see that the atmosphere within our track has been great. The discussion often help to raise new inspiration and help to turn your ambitions into the actionable plan. Lastly, you also get the dedicated person in charge that will happily assist and liaise you during the program. We will help you to answer the technical questions, remind you to complete the learning so you don't miss anything, and make sure you get all the rights and benefits that you are eligible in this program. Okay, I think I'll leave it from here and hand over to Kathleen. If you have any question for me, please feel free to drop it on the Q&A box. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Bina. It's so, yeah, we're so inspired and motivated by the collaboration of the ASEAN networks in the first round, and we're so glad that it's continuing on for the second. So I'll highlight here quickly which are the countries that are running the program for the second round, and these are of course available on our website unglobalcompact.org/SDG Ambition. A couple of comments here to flag as well. And one thing I just really want to emphasize is that if you are like a country office based in a country office of a country that's headquartered somewhere else, and you're not yet a part of a local network, you could participate in the program in your country, assuming that you're able to join the local network there. So definitely, I think there's which is a great way to potentially get your country offices involved with local networks, or find different ways to engage, build a new network of colleagues in different countries beyond where you're headquartered. We did get a question coming in through the chat that I think is really a great one that I want to highlight, which is, do you have to be a member of the Global Compact to take part in the program? And that's really, that's a yes. That's almost our only requirement for participation, is that you are signed up as a signatory or participant of the Global Compact. If you are not yet a member, it is not too late before this program starts, but we would encourage you to begin that application process really soon, and ideally then also reach out to the local network to let them know that you're applying or answer any questions. A couple ways you can do that. I'll ask my colleagues to share the link to the application for the to join the Global Compact in the chat. So we'll add in there the link to join. And if you have any questions or don't know how to reach a local network, you can just email info@unglobalcompact.org, and my colleagues in the participant engagement team would connect with you and help make that connection. So to my colleagues that are on the line and managing the chat, would appreciate if we could add those two links in. The two questions that we hear as you're sort of considering whether this is what will make sense for you, of course, also, and your company also, is who within the company should participate and what is the time commitment expected of them. So want to highlight that here. When you're signing up to SDG Ambition, you're really going to be identifying a team of 2 people from within your company to take part in the program with the support of an SDG champion. The SDG champion is really an internal sponsor for SDG Ambition that is there to champion, cheer on, and make connections if needed for the participants of the program itself. And the reason why we have that role identified is that, goal setting is serious strategic business. So we just want to be sure that individuals have the organizational support behind the time that they're spending in the accelerator. There's very limited expectations around active engagement for that person. So it's not a time commitment as such, but more an internal sort of check and supporter. And then there are the 2 people that are actually joining the program. First, I'll say why 2 people. What we've found is that when we're diving through these sort of complex opportunities, looking for innovation, new ideas across the organization and value chain, it's really great to have a partner to share ideas with, to think about, and to challenge one another and support one another. And it's also a great way to bring colleagues along from different parts of a business who maybe haven't traditionally engaged in sustainability or are interested in it but can't find the time. So 2 people. The first is the sustainability representative, sort of our very common point of contact from the Global Compact perspective. So that's someone who's going to be responsible for prioritization and goal setting, and is likely the advocate and voice for sustainability within the company. The second, and this is the one that's going to look a little different for every company that's participating. We say they're from the systems or technology side. So that would be someone who is responsible for integrating technology solutions across the business, or has great insight into the data flows or where different information is shared across the business, and just generally is someone who's sort of tracking and measuring performance against organizational goals over time. So this is where it can really look different. It could be someone from the information technology department, or monitoring and evaluation, or strategy or analytics. It can really be different depending on who it is. And then in terms of the time commitment, if we go back to that earlier thinking around how the virtual program is structured, over the course of the time that you're in the program, you could expect about 30 hours total, give or take a little bit, depending on how much time you spend working on activities inside or outside the context of the workshops. But just as a reminder, you would expect to see a workshop happening about every 2 to 3 weeks on average. Those are 2 to 2.5 hours long. And then as a reminder, you can watch those on-demand sessions on your own time. There's about 4 to 5 hours of on-demand content. So that's what we're looking at over the scope of the program. We try to really mark the dates in your calendar at the beginning so that you can carve that time out, but that's what we would expect to see. There's a question that, well, there's a really common question in the Q&A that we don't have a slide for. So Amelia, I'm gonna come to you on this one. But I think what I want to say is sometimes I think people see this systems or technology representative, and especially if you're coming from an SME or like a smaller business, or maybe one that doesn't have like really, where software or technology isn't the focus of your information systems, you might be worried that this program is too technology or information systems oriented for you. So Amelia, I was wondering if you could just already speak to, from your perspective, I have strong views on this, but I'll get yours first. Is this program relevant for SMEs? Is it relevant if you don't have really in-depth information systems?
So yeah, the short answer, which I think we are both in agreement on, is yes. This is absolutely relevant program for SMEs as well as large multinational companies. And speaking from the SME perspective specifically, the whole first part of the program is truly dedicated to that prioritization element of looking at where your impact is and selecting a benchmark that goes to your that really relates to your impact, and then thinking about how to operationalize that internally is the second half. And so in terms of it being systems heavy, et cetera, multinationals have more of that need typically, if they are to operationalize something, to have someone who can make sure that the technology and the business systems, et cetera, can track everything that's necessary to track the right metrics, KPIs, and whatnot. From a smaller, from SME perspective, the needs are different to be able to operationalize a goal. You may not need as much of that tech or perspective as someone who can really know the business. And so when you set a target, they will know how to operationalize that target inside your company, whether it be leveraging technology. And if you are an SME, there are, of course, lots of smaller vendors they can partner with that have this technology, so you don't have to build it internally or anything like that. But it's also not just about technology, but also what are the systems in place? What are the metrics that you need to keep track of? What are those KPIs that you need to measure to make sure that you are making progress towards that goal? And that, I think, is relevant for a company of 5 to a company of 500,000, such as the Accentures of the world. So.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. And I think we always struggle when we say technology, and I see the question here in the Q&A, it's like there's not quite the right word for it because of that unique, the unique way that different companies look. So that's really it. Who is the right partner to bring on to support that integration? And that's a great question too, for the local network could support you in identifying who that person is. Just to emphasize the point on SMEs also, the program has been designed to be as really like meet you where you are on your sustainability journey. We already talked about what if you already have goals, but it's also the case if you're really a beginner, why not start by being as ambitious as possible? So ideally it's working across geographies, across sectors, and across company sizes to provide a framework and a way of thinking that can sort of be deployed and help you find those ways to connect.
I might want to build on that slightly, Caitlin, if that's okay. That is something that we struggled with and I think ultimately achieved, and I'm very proud of not coming up with something that's prescriptive. Oh, you select this benchmark, these are the 5 steps you need to take to meet this benchmark. It really is about meeting you where your journey is. We have an 8-step framework that you work through in this 6 months to think through, from planning through to implementation. What are the right exercises that you need to go through as a company to think about how to implement this goal and what that means for you as a company. And I think that's something that's unique and also exciting about this program, is that it is as much as possible a one-size-fits-all. In some ways, we have worked with companies of all sizes from across various industries, as our data shows. And then in addition, one thing I was thinking about, and sorry to go back to this, in terms of these systems and technology, I think about who I saw participating, and we had people from what you might think of as IT, et cetera, but we also had people from supply chain. We had people from strategy. We had people who are really, in some ways, the backbone of just what the company does, so that they can help think through how to integrate that goal into the core element of your business.
All right, thanks for that freewheeling, but I think we addressed a few of the outstanding or open questions there, but we'll go just to one last question that we hear, which is around the program facilitation. What does it look like for us to have these live facilitated sessions? So I'll come to you again, Amelia, if you could just tell us a little bit more about how the program is facilitated, and maybe even a quick snapshot of what the structure of one of those live sessions might look like. What could people expect?
Absolutely. So this is a true collaborative effort in terms of delivery between the UNGC and Accenture. So at Accenture, we actually train up facilitators all over the world. We have a global team of facilitators that work with each individual track, and they really take on the role of facilitating. So they lead all the sessions, they lead the exercises and the breakouts, etc. We also have subject matter experts that attend a lot of the workshops and can help answer specific questions and give guidance. And then we support our colleagues on the local network side with program delivery. Now, the local network side, I'm sure Vienna can expand on this a little bit more, they really take more of the lead on coordination and engagement. So really, they help coordinate all the logistics. They take lead on program communication, etc. They support during the workshops. And then they're the primary point of contact for any questions, any feedback, etc. So it's a true collaborative effort between the two. Now, in terms of what a workshop, I'm sorry, did you want to speak? Yeah.
It's okay. I just agreed with you. So we, as a local network, we will support you as the main local contact point, and we will help you onboarding on the academy. We also will send the reminder for you, so you will not pass the session. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Caitlin, to address the second part of your question, which is what does a workshop typically look like? So we, every workshop is slightly different, but a lot of them do follow a similar cadence. So within a workshop, we typically have plenary sessions where everyone's together, and it's the time where we go over what we've learned so far and what we're hoping to achieve with either an exercise or with the session at large. It's where facilitators can deep dive into the material covered beforehand, really level set, and then explain the exercises that we're going to walk through during each live facilitation. And then there's chances to break out and do that work. So there's chances to have pair time. So going back to the two-person team, a chance to work with your partner to think through, for example, if during our later sessions we build a pitch, we explain how we would think of approaching that pitch building session. You and your partner will then have 10 minutes to think through, okay, what are the main points you want to hit our pitch? Who do we want to talk to, et cetera, and map that out. And then we usually go into group breakout sessions, either by benchmark or mixing groups, where you get to present to each other and really learn from each other and collaborate with peers. So it's a chance for you to talk about what is your approach and get feedback on your approach. And maybe also what are some challenges or issues that you are seeing, and get some input from your colleagues on that and really share and learn from each other. And then typically we go back to plenary where we share some best examples, where we talk about maybe some of the things that we learned during pods, and also talk about some exciting insights, and then just level set for the next workshop. So that's a little bit of a structure of how I would say most of them go.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Amelia. Yeah, I'll say even we were nervous, of course, like many people were, on how interactive sessions would go in a virtual environment when we first started thinking about launching this program more than 2 years ago. We didn't anticipate this, but I have to say it's sort of amazing how engaging the facilitators have been able to make these virtual live sessions, and it's something that couldn't have even anticipated how well it would work when we went into this model. Okay, that is it for our stage questions, and we've actually gotten to a number of the questions already from the chat, but I think in the 11 minutes we have left, we're going to be able to get to a number of the other outstanding questions. One that we get really frequently is on the cost of the program. Do you have to pay anything additional to be a part of it? And I'm really happy to share that in almost every case, in almost every country, there's no additional fee beyond what your company, beyond your participation fee in the Global Compact and the local network to be a part of the program. Saying almost because there's just a very small number of cases where networks charge a very small amount, so I can't say universally that it's free, but for the markets that I suspect people are joining this call from, that is very likely the case. And a local network, the websites that they have on the program would clarify that. So just to say, this is a core thing that you're able to participate in as part of being a part of the Global Compact. But to that end, one person asked if it's possible to have 3 people from the company take part in the program. The answer at this time is no, and the reason for that is sort of tied to what you just heard from Amelia, which is that we try to have really engaging, dynamic, facilitated sessions in the virtual context, and if we expanded it out to too many people, it becomes harder and harder for us to manage and to have and manage those group dynamics. So in every track, you can expect about 20 to 25 companies participating, which is then 40 to 45 people on every call. You can just imagine if it would start to be 60 to 70 people, it's tough to manage. So we do ask that we limit it to 2, but then those 2 participants are given all of the program materials and as PDF and are encouraged to share what they're experiencing with their colleagues. Another question is selection for participating companies selective or competitive, as in, is it limited? And to that, I would say yes, in that it's limited. Because of those group dynamics, as I said, we do try to limit it to 20 to 25 companies, a little bit more for some of these regional tracks like we have for ASEAN, but even still, it is limited. So I would encourage you to, if you're interested in joining, please encourage you to sign up as soon as possible, and that would be my recommendation. Okay, and then we have a question about the global track also. What time zone will it be facilitated in? If I can be totally honest, we will see how the signups go for the global track and base the time zones on that. But for sure, we work to be sure that there's normal working hours. That's even as we work to scale and try to offer it everywhere. That would be our priority, is making sure that you're able to participate within sort of reasonable working hours. Okay, 2 more questions that we are, yeah, this is okay, I'm gonna come to this one. Thanks so much, Andrea, for this. Our company has a team based in many different countries. Can we have one participant do the in-country track and the other in the global? So we would really recommend that the participants do the same track. And I would encourage you to reach out to the local network. And we had similar situations to this for the first round, and we found ways to accommodate. But our baseline recommendation is that the 2 colleagues participate in together, and we find ways to support making that happen in the country where it makes most sense. All right, Monica asked a really great multi-part, there's 2 good questions here from Monica. The first, I think that we've started to go into quite a bit previously, but just in case, she writes, if we already have prioritized SDGs and established a broad range of sustainability targets, what are some of the other benefits of joining this program? So I think that goes to the slide that we did speak to earlier, but just to re-emphasize, one thing that I have to say personally, as someone who's been dreaming of this program for a long time, really excited to see what, from our feedback, was the number of companies who were able to identify an area of impact and priority for the company that they actually hadn't had before, which is something that we suspected. And I'm not saying that this is the case for every company, but just to say that was like one thing that I was really excited about, was the validation that there are very likely some opportunities or stones not yet unturned, and as we look to sort of fill that gap, opportunities to discover new goals. And the second thing that we've heard from actually a number of things. I'm thinking of a very large global brand who participated actually in a couple of different countries. They had different teams participating, who I would classify as being relatively advanced in their goal setting practice, having set them across the whole business. What I heard from participants was that it also, they got value from participating, even given where they were today, in part to give them a new frame or lens that they can use when talking about their sustainability goals. Also, how do they, make a stronger connection between their existing work to the SDGs, tell that story to colleagues, bring colleagues along on that journey who may not be a part of it yet, and then begin to think about, we know most companies can't just snap a finger and set a new 10-year goal, but what are those areas where there are potentially opportunities to upgrade? So I just wanted to take 1 second to highlight that again. The second part of the question is, it would be good to understand if the program provides a deep dive into the SDG indicators and targets that are applicable for the companies. And so I really appreciate that, because I would say that that's not the focus of SDG Ambition. We're really not a content or like an issue focused program. It's more about the management practices and the decisions that go into goal setting. But then what we're really grateful for and positioned to do as the Global Compact is point you towards those resources that would help inform the specifics of the, of the content of the goals, things like that. So just to say, the SDG Ambition approach is really the management framework that we're learning about, and then we'll be directing you towards those additional resources. We will be doing more webinars and sort of making more content on the SDG Ambition benchmarks also available to you over the course of the program. So there will be a little bit more issue content, but just happy to emphasize that's not sort of the core content. And then we have here, can we share the pitches or case studies that were showcased from the first round? And to that I'll say not yet, but only because, again, we just finished the program. You'll notice that for this round, we end in April before we highlight things in June. And part of that is so that we can be having those case studies in hand for these sorts of calls at this time next year. But just to say, there are things that we're working on. We have all the companies, hopefully, and I should have emphasized this at the beginning too. If you complete all those on-demand courses, you actually get a certificate of completion that sort of says we did this, and we spent our time doing it. And we also ask companies, our participants, to share just like final deliverable that's pretty simple, but sort of summarizes the work that you've done for the year. And that includes an outline of the goal that you have been working on, completion of this 8-step SDG Ambition approach, as well as a plan of action for the next 3, 6, 9 months for how you're going to work to bring it to life. And we've encouraged some companies, if they're comfortable, to share a recording of their pitch as well. So we hope that now that we have sort of these final deliverables, that we can work on crafting a great example. A few great examples. So stay tuned for that. I think that we managed to get to all of the questions, which is this is our third call and the first time we managed to do that. So before anyone can write anything else, I'm just kidding. Please reach out to us if you have any other questions. But before we end, I just wanted to say that the next step is that we do hope that you sign up. The deadline, as a reminder, is the 30th of September. The link to join will be added in the chat, but you can always go to unglobalcompact.org/SDG Ambition, where these resources that we've talked about today will be shared. But just as a reminder, if you have any questions, our contact information is on this website, and especially would encourage you to reach out to one of the local networks, because, as Vina very clearly said, they're well positioned to support you and help bring you on this journey, especially if you're just getting ready to join. So with that, I want to thank Amelia and Vina for their time today and sharing their experiences. Appreciate all of you joining us and hope to see you in a much more active and engaged way during some upcoming live workshops. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day from Malaysia and have a good rest for you guys.